Welcome to our Success Lab. The purpose of today is to go over automation, and specifically in regards to learning. So that's kind of where we're starting off with Engagedly as far as our automation goes, is doing it within our learning module, though there are plans to expand that in the future. As I'm going throughout, feel free to ask any questions. So my name is Gabby Davis, and I am one of the lead trainers on our training team. So I work primarily with our clients through onboarding and then conduct ongoing training as new modules are released or new administrators start with our team. I initially was an educator, so I worked in elementary education, and then I got my MBA a year or two ago. And now this is what I do. So educating people and training is one of my passions, and I really enjoy taking, big ideas and making them understandable to a broader audience. All right, so today our key takeaways are going to be some of the benefits of automation, how you can streamline and scale your content management, and then also support your employee growth and development through the use of learning automation. What we'll start with is just an introduction into learning automation. So one of the reasons that we started with this is because we got a lot of feedback from our clients that our learning module was great and they wanted to provide more growth and development opportunities to their employees, but it was a lot for their admin team to manage with creating courses, assigning courses, checking in on them, managing the grading, all of that. It was a lot of pieces that they had to keep up in the air that they were juggling. So with learning automation, it allows you to create, automate, and customize your learning workflows to suit the learning needs of your organization. So it doesn't take away all of the work, but it allows you to do a little bit of upfront work in setting up the workflows, and then it lets the system work for you. So with learning automation enabled, you can seamlessly deploy, track, and manage your learning workflows to effectively scale and manage your organization's learning and development. As of this moment, what we can set up in the workflows is having it send out mail notifications for you, and these can be customized. So it could be an invitation into Engagedly. It could be a notification that a performance cycle is going to be starting soon. When we look into how to set up the workflow, we'll kind of go through some of those use cases in there, but that's one of the options. And then the other two primary choices that you have in creating the workflows are to automatically assign courses and to automatically assign learning paths. And as we go through how to set up those workflows, we'll see kind of how you can filter those options and how you can really define who you want to bring into each of these workflows, but it basically unburdens your admin team and still allows you to keep a high level of quality with your growth and development process. And the best part, like I say down here, is that it only takes 4 steps. And those 4 steps here are going to be what you need to do as you set up the workflow. So the first thing is going to be to set up the trigger. Then you'll define your conditions, choose the action that the workflow will complete, and then you'll finalize those configurations. The trigger is telling the system when it should initiate the workflow. So right now, your trigger options are when a new user is added, or when a user is updated, or when a user is either added or updated. So this would be, like I said, initially a new user. So somebody that you just hired on. This will be perfect for things like onboarding. Updated could be if somebody's department changes, for example, or maybe they have a new manager, something like that. And then added or updated would be either or. So you would select a trigger point and that would initiate the workflow. Then the next step is to define your conditions. And this is where you are looking at the system. So the system says, Helen was added to Engagedly. Now let's see if she meets these conditions to see if we should put her into the workflow. So this is how we tell the system which of the employees have initiated the trigger to bring in. And your choices here are going to be date of hire. So if the date of hire is past a certain date or is on a certain date, then that could be a condition. It can also be department or business unit. So if they are in either this department or business unit, if they have or do not have a specific job title, if they're at a specific location, who their reporting manager is, how long they've been in the organization, what employee type they are. This would be like full-time, contract, things like that, and then employee level as well. So you can have as many conditions as you want, and you'll see down here it says apply when all or any of these conditions are satisfied. So you can decide if they have to meet all of them or just, a couple of them or just even one of those conditions. And the next step in defining your conditions is to also configure the operators. So in addition to deciding department or business unit, we have to decide what the system is looking at. So those options are going to be is not, greater than, things like that. When we actually go into the system, this will be a little bit easier to see, but you'll see here, this one was job title, and it says job title is professor. So when I have this on is, then it's going to say if this is what their job title is in the system, we're going to pull them into this workflow. And once you define those conditions, you're going to go ahead and choose an action. And like I mentioned up top, these are the only actions that we have in here at this time, though what we'll see at the end of this PowerPoint is that there are plans to largely expand this. So the idea is that eventually these workflows will actually control the entire process for you, bringing in other modules such as performance, goals, surveys, so you can really define an entire process in the system and have it run it for you A to Z. And then the final option here is to finalize your configurations. So if you are assigning a course or a learning path, you'll also have the opportunity to set a due date and schedule date. What these are going to look like is a schedule date is going to be how many days after the trigger is initiated. So if I hire Helen today, then in 3 days from now, she's going to be assigned this learning path. And then I can also set a due date, which would be 10 days after this scheduled period, this learning path would be due. And these can also be adjusted, so you can have hours, days, months, and I think there's a couple other options too, but we'll see those once we actually get into the system there. And then this is briefly just the future of automation, so specifically within Engagedly. So this is really what I was just talking about. This is an example of an onboarding workflow. So you'll see here that if the trigger was when somebody is hired, then they would on their first day get a welcome post in the social feed, and it would prompt them to update their profile picture. They would also have 3 courses assigned to them. So these could be onboarding courses, they might be compliance courses, whatever you have as part of your onboarding process. They would also have 3 goals assigned. This is something I'm really excited about. If you have experience in our goals module, this has been something that clients have asked us about, how do I have it so that the system can automatically assign certain goals to every member of our team? And this is one way to do that. Then 30 days in, they'll have a survey just assessing their core challenges, as well as their 30-day review. And then on 60 days, we again have that same survey going out, a 60-day review, and a request for feedback from their manager, and a similar process on day 90. And you can keep this going. In talking with some other clients, they've been envisioning like an entire first year of having something planned, or even having this beyond just onboarding, but creating like a beginning of the year workflow so that as their fiscal year starts, they can go ahead and have all of these pieces in place and just really make it so that they don't have to think too much about what they need to send out. And their employees don't have to think too much about what's expected of them because the system is going to have those built-in reminders. But I'll go ahead and walk you through how to do this process here. So your UI may not look like this yet. If you are interested in switching your UI to this new one, you can always reach out to your account manager and they will be able to switch it over for you. It's just a click of a button on our end, and you'll see that there are some updated views here on the home page. But in either UI, this is going to live under the settings. So if you have admin permissions, you'll be able to access the settings here. And once you have automation enabled, it'll be right here on the left-hand side. So it'll just say automation, and we'll click in there. And this is where you'll find any of your workflows. So the first time that you log in, there isn't going to be anything in here, but as you start putting them in, you'll see those show up. So to create your first one, you'll go ahead and click on Add Workflow, and you'll see here what we saw in those screenshots. So up here in the title, I might call it onboarding. And since my test site is Hogwarts, I'm going to say a new professor. It's important to come up with a good naming convention for your workflow titles. That way it's easy for you to find the workflow and edit it if you need to. And also so that if there is another person to join your team as an administrator, they have a quick understanding of what is available to them and where they may need to go to see what is set up. So once we have that workflow title, we're going to set that trigger. And as we saw, we have added, updated, or either. For this one, since it's a new professor, I'm going to go with added, and then I'm going to go ahead and define my conditions. So for the first one, I'm going to say date of hire, and then I'm going to select my operator. So is and is not are usually better for some of the other conditions. When it comes to a date of hire, I typically recommend less than or greater than, as that's going to give you a window on either side of a date. So for this, I would say greater than, and I may say greater than July 1st because I don't want to start this until July 1. And for my second condition, since this is for a new professor, I'm going to go ahead and select job title and say is, and then I can search through here for my existing job titles, and those will pull up for you. But I could add another condition of job title if I wanted to add another one in there. But some of the other options in here are going to be business unit, location, manager, tenure. So I could also say if their tenure is greater than or equal to 1 month. Now for this one, I'm going to say I want all of the conditions to be satisfied, but if I just wanted any of these, I could just toggle that over and you'll see that it highlights the one that you've chosen to make it easy for you to identify that. And we're almost done with this initial workflow. So then all we have to do is select an action, which in this case, we may say is to send a mail notification. And this is where I would go ahead and select who is going to be involved in this, meaning who it's from, what the subject is, and then what the message is. So this can be customized. If I wanted to do a welcome to your new job kind of email or prompt them to log into Engagedly for the first time, this would be a great way to do that. This is also where if I have, maybe I have some benefits documents that I need them to review or certain training materials, something like that, I could go ahead and link those here in this message. In this case, since we're doing onboarding, I'm going to go ahead and click Assign Learning Path. And this is where my learning path is created. And we'll take a moment to look at that as well, since this is also a relatively new feature. But all I need to do is check that learning path and click Save. And it's going to be added right here. And then I can decide if I want a due date or a scheduled date. I personally want it to go to them the day that the trigger is initiated, so I won't worry about setting a scheduled date. But for the due date, I'm going to go ahead and give them, we'll say 15 days to complete that. So it will show up as in their pending actions and let them know when they're approaching that due date. I can also add in a second action if I want. So maybe I also want to assign a specific course that isn't a part of that. And in that way, I can say I want to go ahead and include simple goal setting, but I want this one to come out, we'll say 5 days after. We'll give them 5 days to complete it. And once we have all of that set up, then we would just scroll back up here and go ahead and click Save. Oh, it's telling me I'm missing something. What are we missing? Oh, we needed to pick a course. I thought I did. Let me see if maybe, and click Save. And then that workflow will be right here. And if at any time we need to make edits, we could just go to this overflow menu and we can edit it. We can also run it manually if we need to initiate it, and we can pause it. And when you pause it, you'll see that the status moves into paused. And during that time, it won't be triggering anything or sending out any of those actions. Now, Milky and Helen, do either of you have any exposure to creating those learning paths? Have you seen that before? You can go into the admin view. Awesome. I'm so glad. Okay, great. So this will help because it is part of that automation. And once you get under that admin view, we're going to go to learning. And then it'll be right here where it says learning paths. And what you can do to create one is just go ahead and click on that create button. And it's similar to creating a course in that you're first going to set up the skeleton here. So we could say onboarding new student. And I can go ahead and type in a description if I want, but it's not required. I can also add in a category path. So in this case, these are going to sort the courses based on the provider, but I can also add a category here. So I might say new student, and then I can go ahead and select that category, and it will just make it so that when people go into our learning library, if they are a new student or a new professor, they could click into that folder and see all of the courses and learning paths associated with that category. I can also add in tags. So I could say onboarding, student, maybe that's all we need there. But this again allows people to search for things easier. Then you can also associate competencies with it. If you have your corporate competencies or your organization competencies, you could put those in there. You can also add a co-author. I would recommend doing this if you have somebody else that you work with on your team who needs access to this learning path, as when you make them a co-author, it gives them the ability to edit as well as have admin rights within that learning path. And then down here, you can also decide if you want the courses to only be completed sequentially. So if this is not selected, then they can go out of order. But if they need to stay in order, you'll just want to select that. And then you can upload an image. So I'll go ahead and put that in there and it'll say onboarding. And then when people see my course, that's what they'll see. And then I'll just go ahead and click create. And now that the basics are added in here of what the learning path is going to look like and how it's going to be conducted, I can go ahead and add in my courses. So we'll find the add course button here. And when you click in that, you'll go ahead and see all of your available courses. So these are all the ones that are going to show up. I might go ahead and again do all of my Harry Potter courses that I have in here. I can go ahead and click confirm and add. This is where you can go ahead and delete any. Maybe you don't like a certain one. You can say, actually, I don't need them to know about the creatures of the Forbidden Forest. I'm just going to leave these. And then I can click save. And now the courses will show up here. Now, if they're not in the order that you want, you can always reorder them. So I could move Hogwarts of History to the top. And since I have it to where they need to be completed sequentially, that will have them learn about Hogwarts as a whole and then go into the values of each house. Once you have that done, you can go ahead and publish it. And this will push it to the library so that people can join the learning path. And then when you go to manage it, this is where you'll see any of the learners that are in there and any of the info about it. When I go to the library now, I can see that I have new professor onboarding in here with those courses. I also have the new student category here. It won't show any specific courses, but if I go to learning paths, then I'll be able to see it in there. So if you're choosing to use the automation and you want to go with the learning path, so that you don't have to select each individual course, then you'll want to go ahead and set these up first and then create your workflows. And if for some reason you don't find these buttons in your site, go ahead and reach out to your account manager. A lot of these new features have to be updated over time, and we just have to turn them on for you. So if there isn't something in your site that you want, go ahead and reach out to them. And I'll also show you that this isn't directly related to the automation, but we did just add this help center. And you can always find resources here at the top. These are dynamic, so based on where you are in the platform, the top searches are going to change. But what I did want to draw your attention to is actually down here under the Engagedly resources. You'll see that we have the Success Labs, which is what we're in right now. So if you click there, you'll be able to find past recordings. And we also have the webinars. So these are going to be product releases and also discussions with other HR practitioners about best practices. So if you're interested or you can't make it to one of the webinars, I highly recommend scrolling through here and checking these out. These are available to everybody, so not just admins, but also your managers and your employees. And you do also have access to this resource here called the Academy, which will open up in this other page. And there are a list of courses here that are free for all of our clients to try and take them. And all you need to do is go ahead and click, and then you can register for it, and they're free. That is the extent of everything that we're going to cover today. But thank you guys so much for coming, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your week.